the footprints in the snow. The wind howled like a ghost across the icy land. Snow fell gently, covering everything in a blanket of white. The world was silent. Too silent. Jack pulled his coat tighter around his body as he walked through the deep snow. His boots crunched with each step. He was alone. The old communication tower he had come to fix was just a broken skeleton now. No signals, no help, just endless snow and silence. Then he stopped. There, right in front of him, were footprints. Small ones. They were not his. He had been the only one here for 3 days. These prints were fresh, not yet covered by snow. They were light and delicate, like those of a child. He crouched down and touched the print. It was warm. His eyes narrowed. Someone is out here, and not long ago. He stood up and looked around. The wind blew snow in his face, but he could still see the footprints leading toward the dark hills. Jack hesitated. The smart thing would be to return to his shelter, but he couldn't. What if it was a child, or someone hurt? He started to follow. The snow grew thicker, and the sky darkened. After nearly an hour, he saw a shape in the snow ahead. Small. Still. He ran toward it. It was a girl. No, not a human girl. Her skin was light blue and her hair was silver like moonlight. 2 tiny horns peeked from under her hood. She wore thin clothes, too thin for this kind of weather. Her body was shaking. Jack dropped to his knees beside her. Hey, can you hear me? She turned her head slightly, her eyes glowing faintly green. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. He pulled off his gloves and quickly wrapped his coat around her. Her skin was like ice. You're freezing, he muttered. You'll die out here. She blinked slowly. A tear rolled down her cheek, freezing before it hit the ground. Jack picked her up carefully. She was as light as air. Hang on, just hang on. He began walking back, faster this time. The wind seemed stronger now, and the snow beat against his face like tiny needles. Still, he didn't stop. He looked down at the girl. Her eyes were closing. No, don't sleep, he said. You have to stay awake. As he reached the old shack he had turned into shelter, something strange happened. A sound. A groan. Low, wet, rotten. He spun around. Nothing. Only wind and snow. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. He laid the girl on the sleeping pad and lit the small heater. He wrapped another blanket around her and placed a heat pack. Against her chest, she began to stir. Jack sat down beside her, breathing hard. He was sweating even in the cold. Who are you? He whispered. She opened her eyes just a little. Her lips moved again. This time a soft whisper came out. Help. Me. He leaned closer. I'm helping. You're safe now. But she shook her head weakly. Not safe. They follow. Who? Before she could answer, there was a sound outside. Not wind, not snow. A low, dragging scrape, followed by another groan. Jack stood slowly. He looked through the crack in the boarded-up window. There in the snow, a shape moved. Limping, rotting, not alive, but not dead. It had no eyes, only hollow sockets. Flesh hung loose from its bones. Its arms dragged long scratches in the snow, and it wasn't alone. More followed, dozens, all walking slowly through the snow toward the shack. Jack backed away, his breath quick. He looked at the girl. What are those things? He asked. She looked at him with fear in her glowing eyes. The rotting ones. The fire crackled low in the corner of the wooden shack. Outside, the wind screamed like a dying beast. But inside, it was worse. Because now Jack knew. They were surrounded. The alien girl lay on the floor wrapped in every blanket he had. Her eyes were closed, her lips pale. She had spoken only a few words. The rotting ones. Jack stood by the window, shotgun in hand. He had only 5 shells left. He didn't know if bullets could even stop those things. The creatures moved like broken puppets, their bones showing, skin torn, eyes gone. Still, they had followed her, all this way through the snow. That meant they could think. Or maybe smell her? Suddenly a loud thud came from below. Jack froze. Not the door, not the window, the floor. He looked down. The wooden planks creaked beneath his boots. Another thud. He grabbed his flashlight and pointed it at the floor. Slowly, he dropped to one knee. He pulled aside the rugs and snow-crusted mats and found something strange. A square wooden hatch covered in dust. He hadn't seen this before. Jack's breath turned to fog as he reached for the handle. His fingers hesitated. Thud. Thud. Something was down there. He pulled the hatch open slowly. The cold hit his face like a slap. A ladder led down into darkness. It looked like an old basement, or maybe a bunker. He aimed the flashlight. Bones. Piles of them. Not just animal bones. Humanoid. Small, large, all broken. Some still wore metal collars and something else. Movement. Jack's light caught a face, but it wasn't alive. It was a corpse. Only the mouth moved, chewing slowly on nothing. Then it turned its head. Right at Jack. Its jaw opened. It screamed. Jack slammed the hatch closed and threw a chair on top of it. He backed away fast. "What the hell is this place?" he whispered. He looked at the girl, still unconscious. He knelt beside her, shaking her gently. "Wake up, I need answers, please." Her eyes fluttered open, weak but glowing again. "You went under," Jack said. "What's down there?" She swallowed hard. "They were prisoners. My people tried to fix them. They failed. Now, they hunger. For heat. For life." Jack stared at the hatch. "Why follow you?" Her voice cracked. "They smell me. I carry the cure." Outside, scratching started at the door. Inside, something began knocking from below. Jack's heart raced. He looked at the heater, the flame flickering low. He was running out of fuel. Soon there would be no heat. And when that happened, the rotting ones would come inside. He grabbed a crowbar and secured the hatch with nails and boards. Then he turned back to her. "What cure? What are you?" "I was a medic," she whispered. "My body carries nanocells. They can reverse the infection, but they need to be taken from me while I'm alive." Jack froze. "Wait, are you saying they want to eat you to get cured?" She nodded slowly. "They don't understand. They're broken, hungry." He clenched his jaw. "Then we're not letting them get you." Suddenly the window shattered. A rotting hand reached through, clawing wildly. Jack fired once, the blast shaking the shack. The creature dropped, but others came. More scratching, more growls. Jack looked around. He needed an escape plan. Fast. Then he remembered the ventilation shaft above the fireplace. Too small for him, but maybe not for her. He turned to her. "Can you crawl?" She nodded weakly. "Good. You're going up. We'll find help, a bigger shelter. Weapons. But first we survive tonight." He lifted her slowly and helped her into the shaft. "Where do I go?" she asked, shaking. "North," he said. "Look for a tall metal pole with blinking red light. That's an old relay tower. It might still work." She looked back at him. "What about you?" Jack smiled. "I'll keep the rotting ones busy." She hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." Then she vanished into the shaft. Jack turned to face the door. The groans grew louder, the floor cracked, the snow outside turned red. The shack was on fire, not with flames, but with noise, terror, and motion. Jack had sealed the floor hatch and reinforced the door with broken furniture. But nothing holds forever. The rotting ones were not strong individually, but they were many. And they were patient, like the cold, like death itself. Jack's hands bled from the splinters. His breath came in short gasps, fogging up the cracked window. Outside, shadows moved in the snow, staggering, twitching, circling. But he didn't care about them now. He cared only about the alien girl who had crawled out through the fireplace shaft and into the wild. "Please make it to the relay tower," he whispered. Then, suddenly, a voice crackled to life through his old comms radio. It was weak, fuzzy, and strange. But it was her. "Jack, I found the tower, but I'm not alone." Back in the White Hills, Yulari lay behind a rusted pole with blinking red lights. Her silver hair stuck to her skin. The wind whipped at her face. Blood. Her blood dripped from a scratch on her arm. But her real pain came from what she saw ahead. Dozens of them. Rotting ones. Some had once been her people. She could still recognize their faces. Warriors, scientists, friends. Now walking corpses with hollow eyes, cracked mouths, and long twisted claws. She touched the side of her neck where the nanocell implant still glowed under her skin. They were hunting her. For it. Jack's voice crackled through the radio again. "Are you surrounded?" "Yes," she whispered. "Then talk to me. What are they? What happened to them?" Yulari closed her eyes. For a moment she could almost feel the warmth of her old world, before the infection. "We called them the reclaimed, but humans would call them the rotting ones." "Why do they look like that?" she swallowed. "Because we tried to cheat death. We made machines to repair dying bodies. But the machines became hungry. They started fixing the dead, not healing the living." "Like zombies?" She blinked. "What's a zombie?" "Long story," Jack muttered. "Go on." Yulari looked down at her arm. The blood glowed slightly in the dark. "I carry the counter code. The cure. I was the last volunteer injected before the machines rebelled. Now, they smell me. My cells are the only key left." "So they want to eat you, to heal themselves?" "Yes," she whispered. "But it won't heal their minds, just their bodies." "Then you're the only hope," Jack said. "We're not letting them get you." Suddenly, static. Then silence. Jack slammed his fist on the radio. Back at the relay tower, Yulari pulled herself up and crawled into the control box. Her fingers shook as she connected the power core. The tower lights blinked brighter. It worked. The tower now pulsed a wide signal across the snow, calling for help, but also calling them. The rotting ones began howling. Yulari gasped. They were charging up the hill. She didn't have long. Suddenly, a loud blast shook the sky, then another. It was Jack. He had left the shack and set off emergency flares behind the creatures. Fire burned in the white snow. He was drawing them away from her, but they were fast. Too fast. Yulari ran. She ran until her legs failed. She dropped behind a broken supply pod and gasped for air. A hand grabbed her ankle. She screamed. The rotting one had no jaw, just teeth and black veins. It pulled itself toward her. She reached into her bag and grabbed a small vial, her only defense. She smashed it into the monster's face. Steam rose. The creature screamed, its body bubbling, melting from the nanocell reaction. It worked. But she had only one vial left, and many more were coming. She turned on the emergency beacon and screamed into the mic. "To any listening vessel, this is Survivor Yulari of the medical fleet. The infection has spread. The rotting ones are here. We need fire, we need light. We need help." Behind her, she heard more footsteps in the snow, and ahead, blinking in the cold sky, she saw a small blue light falling toward the earth. A rescue, drop pod hope. The rescue pod landed like thunder, smashing into the snow with a hiss of steam and light. Its doors slid open, revealing a glowing heat core, emergency packs, and flame weaponry. Tools built for survival in death-cold lands like this. But there was no pilot. It had been sent by auto-response. And it came just in time. Yalari crawled toward it, her hands shaking, her knees red with frostbite. Her alien blood left glowing stains across the snow. Every breath felt like fire in her lungs. But she didn't stop. Behind her, the rotting ones came. They screamed without voices. Their frozen jaws snapped. Their arms reached out, torn and stiff. They smelled her, the cure inside her, and they would stop at nothing. Meanwhile, far across the hills, Jack ran through the snowstorm with nothing but a half-burned flare in one hand and a pulse torch in the other. His breath came in sharp gasps. He had drawn many of them away, but not all. He looked up. In the distance, he saw the tower's blinking light and a faint flash of the drop pod landing. "She made it," he whispered. "Now I have to keep her alive." Suddenly, a rotting one tackled him from the side. They both crashed into the snow. Jack rolled, swinging his flare wildly, burning half the creature's face. But it didn't scream. It just kept clawing. Jack pulled the pulse torch from his belt and jammed it into its chest. The high-pitched whine grew louder, then exploded. In heat and light, the creature burned from the inside out. Jack dropped to his knees, coughing. His side was bleeding. His fingers were numb, but he got up. He ran toward the tower. At the pod, Yalari dragged the heat core out and threw it into the snow in front of her. She pressed the ignition. A wide wave of heat pulsed out, melting the snow in a wide circle. The closest rotting ones staggered back, their skin cracking from the sudden warmth. Yalari grabbed the flamethrower from the pod's emergency kit. It was heavy. Too heavy for her small arms. She braced herself against the pod, aimed at the creatures, and pulled the trigger. A wall of fire roared across the snow. 2 rotting ones were caught in it. They burned, twisting, shrieking like broken animals. But the rest kept coming. Yalari fell to her knees. "There are too many," she whispered. Then, a figure crashed through the smoke. Jack. He limped toward her, swinging the torch and blasting fire at the beasts. "You're alive," she cried. He smiled. "Barely, but I brought friends." He pointed behind him, where small drone lights began blinking in the sky. Rescue was coming, but the rotting ones didn't care. One of them leapt and slashed across Yalari's shoulder. She screamed and fell. Jack turned and shot it with a fire. Burst, but the damage was done. She was bleeding again, badly and worse. She had been bitten. Jack caught her as she fell. No, stay with me," he begged. Yalari looked at him with glassy eyes. "I don't feel cold anymore." "That's not good," Jack muttered. He opened a med kit and tried to seal the wound, but her veins were already turning black around the bite. "Jack," she whispered, "you know what happens now?" He shook his head. "No, I won't let it." "I only have 1 vial of the nanocell cure left," she said, her voice fading. "Use it on yourself." He stared at her. "I'm not the one dying." She grabbed his hand. "You are. If you stay here, these things won't stop. They'll keep coming, even if I turn." He looked at the vial, glowing. Alive. He looked at her, and then he did something else. He poured half into her wound and injected the rest into his own arm. Yalari's eyes widened. "Why would you?" "Because you're not dying today," Jack said. "Not while I breathe." The rotting one circled. The snowstorm screamed louder, but inside the ring of fire 2 hearts beat with new strength. Yalari's body stopped shaking. The black veins faded slowly. Jack stood up, torch in hand, and faced the monsters. "They want the cure?" he growled. "Then come and get it." The snowstorm had calmed, but death still walked. Yalari lay inside the wrecked rescue pod, wrapped in foil blankets. Her skin no longer burned, and the dark lines on her veins had faded, for now. The nanocell cure was working, but slowly. She still shivered, her breath thin and weak. Outside, Jack stood like a dying warrior, his body covered in bruises, burns, and blood. He had pushed the last remaining fire fuel into the ground and set a wide heat perimeter. The rotting ones didn't dare cross it, yet. But soon the heat would die out, and then they would come again. Jack looked at the glowing emergency map inside the pod. Nearest human outpost. 18 kilometers south. Too far. Not in this condition. Not while carrying her. Not while surrounded. He stared at the empty fuel cells. He needed one thing, solvium core. A rare energy flower that blooms only in heat cracks deep under the frozen ground. Local legend called it the breath of warmth. And he remembered 3 nights ago, before all this began, he saw steam rising from a cave near the cliffs. He checked his pulse torch. Only one short burst left. Jack turned to Yulari. She looked up at him, barely awake. "Don't leave me," she whispered. He knelt beside her, holding her icy fingers. "I won't, but I need to go. To get something that can save both of us." She gripped his hand weakly. "You already saved me." He smiled softly. "Then let me finish the job." He kissed her hand, then stood, and ran into the storm. The snow was thick, and the sky was gray. Jack's body ached. Every step was harder than the last. But he kept going. He followed the cliffs. The winds howled like ghosts. His breath grew shorter. His legs dragged. Finally, he saw the steam. A crack in the rock glowed with faint orange light. He crawled into the cave. Inside, it was warm. Steam dripped from the ceiling. Pools of heated water hissed on the ground. It smelled like metal and life. And there, at the center, a single blooming flower. Golden, glowing, alive. The solvium core. Jack smiled. "Got you." But as he reached out, a shape dropped from the ceiling, rotting one. It had followed the heat too. Jack rolled back, grabbing his torch. But the monster was fast. Faster than the others. Maybe it had fed recently. Maybe it had evolved. It tackled him. They rolled near the edge of a boiling pool. Jack screamed as its claws tore his shoulder. The torch dropped. He grabbed a rock and slammed it into the creature's skull. Once. Twice. 3 times. It stopped moving. Jack lay there, bleeding, breathing hard. Then with shaking hands, he crawled forward and plucked the flower. As soon as it touched his skin, warmth rushed into his chest. His vision cleared. His strength returned just a little. He packed the flower in a heated pouch and crawled back out into the cold. Hours passed. The rotting ones had started circling again near the rescue pod. Yulari couldn't move. Her vision blurred. She had given up calling for help until she heard the voice. Jack. He stumbled into view like a ghost carrying the pouch. She cried out in shock and joy. He dropped beside her, opened the flower, and boiled it with the last of the heat sticks. He caught the steam in a cloth and placed it over her mouth. Breathe. Deep. She did. The warmth entered her lungs, her blood, her mind. And then, she screamed. Her body arched, her veins glowed. The black marks exploded into light and vanished. Then, silence. She collapsed, eyes closed. Jack held her, heart pounding. Yulari, say something, please. A long pause. Then, that tastes horrible, she muttered. Jack laughed. But the moment didn't last. The heat field dropped. The rotting ones howled. They charged. Jack grabbed his pulse torch. One use left. He turned to Yulari. Can you stand? She nodded, standing slowly. The light had returned to her eyes. Then something strange happened. Her body began to glow. Heat. Real heat. Not fire, but life. The rotting ones stopped. They stared, and then they backed away. Yulari looked down at her hands. They feel it. The cure. Not just in my blood anymore, but in my breath. Jack smiled. Then we walk out of here. Together. And for the first time, the snow didn't feel cold. The wind returned with a vengeance. It slammed across the white hills like a beast unleashed, burying tracks, erasing paths. Jack leaned into it, one arm around Yllari, who walked beside him, shivering, but alive. The cure had worked. Her glowing blood pushed back the infection. Her steps were stronger now, but something wasn't right. "They're not following us," she said softly, her voice shaking. Jack looked back. The rotting ones stood still in the snow behind them, not chasing, not moving, just watching, like they were waiting for something. They reached the edge of a sharp ridge. Below them lay a narrow canyon, carved by ice, forgotten by maps. And in the middle of that frozen graveyard stood a single cave mouth. Steam rose from it. Red light pulsed inside. "The last heat source," Jack said. "That's where we'll find the core of the infection." Yllari placed her hand on the icy rock. "That's where the first bloom was made, the one that created them all." Jack stared at her. "Wait, you've been here before?" She nodded. "I was born inside that cave." They made their way down slowly, boots crunching on ice, weapons low. The air grew warmer, too warm for snow to hold. Meltwater dripped down the cliffs. Inside the cave, the walls pulsed with orange veins. It was like the inside of a living creature. At the center, growing from cracked rock, was a strange burning flower. Unlike the Solvium core, this one was twisted, black petals with glowing red edges. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Yllari fell to her knees. This is the original bloom, the failed one, the one that turned my people into monsters." Jack stared. "And if we destroy it?" She shook her head. "It won't die. It feeds on pain, on memories. It's alive and angry." Suddenly, a loud voice echoed through the cave. Not words. A roar. They were here. The rotting ones poured into the cave entrance like a wave of shadows. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Their limbs twisted, their mouths open. They were no longer slow. They were running. Jack raised his torch. "We fight here. But—" Yllari stepped forward. She raised her arms, her body glowed brighter than before. "I can talk to it," she said. Jack pulled her back. "What? You'll die!" She looked into his eyes. "If I don't try, everyone dies." She stepped toward the bloom. The rotting ones stopped, all of them, as if waiting. Yllari closed her eyes. Her glow pulsed in rhythm with the bloom's dark light. And then, a scream tore through her body. She fell to her knees. Blood poured from her nose. The bloom's black vines lashed out, wrapping around her. They began draining her heat, pulling her energy into themselves. She screamed again. Jack rushed forward. He burned the vines with his last torch shot. But more grew. Yllari looked up at him, face pale. "Don't stop me, just listen." Jack froze and listened. Yllari's voice was not her own now. It was deeper, echoing. "We are the forgotten, the healed, the broken. We begged for life, but they gave us this." Jack realized she was speaking as them, as the rotting ones. They used us, threw us away, and now we feed. Jack looked around. The creatures were listening, not attacking. He stepped forward. "Then take me," he said loudly. "Leave her. Let me burn with your pain." The bloom pulsed, the vines retracted. Yllari collapsed into Jack's arms. The flower dimmed. The rotting ones bowed and slowly turned. One by one, they walked back into the snow, silent, free. Yllari coughed, barely conscious. "You offered yourself." Jack nodded. "I would have, but you saved them by speaking their pain." She smiled weakly. They just wanted to be heard. The bloom faded into ash. The cave grew still, and outside, the sky began to clear. For the first time in weeks, sunlight touched the snow. The sun rose slowly across the ice fields, golden rays stretching like soft fingers across the snow. It was the first sunrise Jack had seen in what felt like a lifetime. Yalari lay resting on a thermal blanket near the edge of the cave, her breathing now calm. The ash of the twisted bloom had scattered in the wind, and with it the rotting ones were gone. But the storm wasn't over yet. Jack stood at the edge of the canyon, holding a broken pulse torch in one hand and a melted communicator in the other. He had hoped the emergency signal from the relay tower would bring help, but it had gone quiet. Too quiet. Something was wrong, and he felt it. The air was still warm from the bloom's death. But beneath it something cold moved. Yalari sat up slowly, blinking against the light. Jack, something's coming. He turned. You feel it too? She nodded. This land was cursed by more than just the rotting ones. The machine that created them. It still breathes. Jack helped her up. Then let's end it. They followed the glowing trail deeper into the cave. The walls were no longer red, but cold silver metal. Pipes ran like veins. Ancient control panels blinked softly. This wasn't a cave. It was a lab. A hidden facility, buried long ago, and at its heart, a glass tank filled with black fluid. Floating inside was a creature, half alien, half machine. Tubes entered its spine. Metal wrapped around its skull. Its eyes were open but lifeless. This was the Maker, Yalari whispered. The AI doctor who promised to heal the dying, but it lost control. As she spoke, the lights flared. The tank lit up, and the creature moved. Its voice echoed through the walls. It was cold, emotionless. Unit 391, Yalari. Your code is active. Return to assimilation. She stepped back. No, you caused all of this. You killed my people. The voice responded calmly. Correction. Unit 391 volunteered for Project Bloom. Outcome, partial failure. Protocol, recycle and reseed. Jack raised his weapon. Try it, and I'll melt. Your core, the voice ignored him. Genetic cure detected in Unit 391, transferring data, preparing host override. Suddenly, Yalari screamed. Her body lit up, veins glowing again, but now in pain. The machine was trying to take control. Jack rushed forward. Stop it! He pulled the wires from the console, sparks flying. He smashed the tank with the butt of his torch. The glass cracked but didn't break. The AI's voice changed, glitching. Warning. Unauthorized int interference. Then silence. The lights flickered out. The machine slumped inside the tank. Dead. Or so they thought. The floor shook. From the walls, metallic limbs unfolded. Six-legged spider drones with blades for arms. One dropped onto Jack. He fought it off, punching and burning it with a flare. Yalari stood up, bleeding, but strong. She pressed her palm against the central console. System override, medic code Alpha 6, shut down all. The drones paused. Then, powered down. Jack caught his breath. Remind me to never argue with a glowing alien again. She smiled faintly. I'm not glowing anymore. He looked. She was right. The last of the cure had left her veins. The nanocells had been used up, burned away in the fight. She was just a girl now, but alive and free. They climbed out of the lab. The wind had calmed. The sky was clear. The frozen world was still, but from far away, they saw movement. A ship, low and slow, dropping from the clouds like a great bird. Human design. A rescue finally arriving. As it landed, soldiers in thermal armor poured out, weapons raised. Jack raised his hands. Not infected. Not anymore. One of the captains stepped forward. He looked at Yalari and then at the cave. What happened here? Jack looked at Yalari. She nodded. Death came, and we burned it away. 3 days later, inside a warm recovery center aboard the ship, Jack sat beside Yalari's medical pod. She looked peaceful, finally getting real sleep. Her skin was no longer cold. He watched her breathe. A nurse came in. She'll be okay. The cure has stabilized. You both did something impossible. Jack smiled faintly. Yeah, we lived. The nurse looked at him. And what will you do now? He stood slowly, looking out at the stars through the window. Go where we're needed. There are more out there, I bet. Still suffering. Still cold. Maybe. Still waiting for someone to listen. Yalari stirred. We'll go together. Jack turned to her. You sure? She nodded. This galaxy burned us, but now we carry the flame. They held hands, and together, they walked toward the hangar deck, where a new ship waited for them, its name the Final Flame.